Hi everyone, I'm Liz Henderson, Director of Edge Women, and I'm so excited you're joining us tonight for Season 3 of Refuel+Recharge. This series is all about featuring inspiring women and the stories that make them so special. Tonight's episode is highlighting female entrepreneurs whose stories have grabbed our hearts. So tonight you'll be hearing from Beth Chapman, Christy Wright, Tanorria Askew, and Lee Dooley. My hope for you is that if you're watching tonight and you have a dream in your heart, whether you're a young professional, a stay-at-home mom, or an empty nester, that you'll be inspired to take the next step. Or if you have a friend who's considering jumping out on their own and pursuing their own thing, my hope is that tonight inspires you to cheer them on. So I'm so excited to get going, but first I'm going to toss it over to my colleague Ann O'Brien, who's going to share a little bit with you about what Edge is.
Thanks, Liz. On behalf of the whole team at Edge, we are so glad that you're joining us tonight. I'd like to take a quick moment to tell you about what Edge is. Edge is a nonprofit organization that focuses on whole person development, which includes personal, professional, and spiritual growth and everything that encompasses. We're based here in Indianapolis, but we have participants from all over the country. There's lots of ways to get involved. The first is through Edge groups. We pair 5 to 7 young professionals with a more seasoned leader who serves as a mentor, and these groups meet every 2 weeks for a year and walk together in personal, professional, and spiritual growth. The next is Edge at Work, where we bring Edge's proven mentoring model to the workplace. Companies are able to invite their emerging leaders to participate in this cohort-based curriculum experience where we focus on strictly personal and professional development. And last, we have Edge events, which you are attending one now. Typically, these are in-person events, but we're so thrilled for the opportunity to go virtual. We'll continue hosting in-person events throughout 2021, and we encourage you to join us and be part of the Edge community. We invite you to participate with Edge and join now. Learn more at edgementoring.org.
Hi, I'm Kristen from Oliver's Twist in Carmel, Indiana, and my mom and I started Oliver's Twist. This will be our 15th anniversary next month, 15th year. So we were both public school teachers looking for a change, and at the time I was getting married and starting to work on my own wedding papers and really found a love for paper. She taught high school desktop publishing, so it was always kind of in her wheelhouse. So we decided to start doing it for other people. One thing led to another, and here we are. We were at Clay Terrace for 9 years and moved to Carmel City Center in summer of 2018. So we would love to have you come visit us. We're right next to the Cake Bake Shop and between the Cake Bake Shop and the garage.
Hi, my name is Rachel Klein. I'm the owner and founder of Revival Food Co. Craft Almond Butter. I started this company about 6 years ago because I saw a need in the marketplace for an almond butter that made you feel as good as it tasted. There wasn't a lot of almond butter out there that actually tasted good. There honestly still isn't. So I set out to make my own and made it without any sugar, preservatives, palm oil, or pretty much anything bad. We have since grown into about 1,000 stores, over 1,000 stores nationwide, mostly Walmarts. Pretty wild. I love being an entrepreneur because as an entrepreneur, you have the opportunity to put something out into the world that didn't exist before and that makes people happy. So being an entrepreneur for me has been an incredible journey, just to know that I'm putting something out there that is making breakfast and maybe even the world a better place. So if you want to follow along more onto our journey, you can find us on Instagram at Revival Food Co. or on our website, revivalfoodco.com.
We're kicking off tonight's series with the creative and talented Beth Chapman, co-founder and board chair of Show Hope, author and founder of the Blue Petal. Her husband, Stephen Curtis Chapman, was kind enough to invite us to his property where Beth showed us around and the creative work that she's up to. What I love most about Beth's story is that she's about to be an empty nester and just now launching into her entrepreneurial journey. I cannot wait for you to hear what she has to share. Beth, it's so good to be with you today.
Good to be with you as well.
Oh, thank you. Well, we loved hearing your story at EdgeX this past year and have been following you on social media. And so last year when we saw that you were launching something called the Blue Petal, we became fascinated by this idea.
What is this crazy lady doing? Yeah.
Yes, this whole whimsical mix of old and new items and bringing happy to sad things. And so we wanted to chat with you today to hear a little bit about your dreams for that and what you've been up to. So
Yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind, and obviously, as the world knows, we've been kind of on a hold or a pause with this crazy COVID-19 stuff. And so I was telling you a little earlier in just our previous chat that Stephen and I decided, well, we're just going to, I gardened when I was young with my grandmother, and so we started this little garden. And then from there, I have always loved, old glassware. My grandmother instilled a love of just old things, and always curious about the stories behind them, where they came from. Anytime I walk through a thrift store or a Goodwill or a yard sale, estate sale, I'm like, I wonder what the story is, or how did that get misplaced, or this seems like such a treasure, or wanting to try to give it back to the owner because I'm just curious about the story behind it. And then, just repurposing and going, there are people who would think this is like uber cool, for their home. And again, just the idea of, old things being made new, and, kind of the spring after the winter, and, in our own lives, how we can start again with dreams and ideas. And it kind of all just kind of started happening, and so here we are. We started.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for those who are new today, how would you describe the Blue Petal? What is it?
Well, the Blue Petal is kind of, as you said, the little tagline is sad things made happy. And I personally love like antique glassware. I love, in particularly, antique planters and garden vessels. And that mixed with my love of gardening and planting and all of that, it kind of became this, hey, we could, do kind of it's really a kind of a vintage kind of store of repurposing, old glassware and dishes and making new sets, not necessarily, kind of a mix and match kind of thing. And then also just, using the garden pieces to do some of the love of gardening in. And so it kind of just became this kind of like, hey, what could we call this? And I'm like, hey, I'd love to, again, the Blue Petal is in remembrance of our daughter Maria, who's with Jesus, and again, new life from her story, and how God restores and renews, and being able to bring hope, to people who may be hurting and thinking that it's going to constantly, their life is going to be kind of in a death space, but it's not. There is, renewal and refreshing and new, and so it just kind of grew out of there, and yeah, we're having fun.
That's so fun. So what intrigued me most about your story is your husband, Stephen Curtis Chapman. You've started Show Hope, an adoption organization doing incredible work. All of your kids are now almost out of the nest.
That's right.
And so
you're the one that pointed that out. I know. Like, you're like, hey, so why now?
Yeah. Most women say, I'm going on vacation, I'm going to relax. So
well, I am hoping to do that. Like we actually, this is a side note, we actually, one place I've always wanted to go is Italy. So for about 2 years, we've had a cruise to Italy with some of our good friends planned for September. But with COVID, now that has been jettisoned because they're obviously it's not the right time. And we'll just start another company, right?
Right, instead start a business.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, hopefully this can be managed time-wise, but yeah, it just kind of happened out of a pause of Stephen taking a pause from what he does, musically. He's been blessed to be able to kind of pivot and do some of those drive-in shows and whatnot. He's been able to work a little bit, but it has been, devastating to the entertainment industry to not. We found ourselves at home looking at each other going, we've got to figure out how we're not going to hurt each other. No, you do, like, I love being with him. He's my best friend, but, it was like, hey, well, we'll just start a garden. It wasn't that simple, but we did just start kind of messing around with our own, like, herb garden and all of that. And then it's like, we had a lot of time together to kind of just, drive around and start looking at, so anyways, he's just been fanning my flame of just being creative and whatnot, so. Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. What I loved reading was you had this dream in your heart to be a little entrepreneur, start a business, but you were afraid to tell your friends, even your closest people. So tell me about that.
It still makes me nervous a little bit. They're probably watching it going, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's just, I've never really been one to want to be the one on camera or, those early days of like even award shows with Steve. It's like that just really makes me nervous, just being in front of a lot of people. And so to do something like this is kind of outside of the wheelhouse, and most of my friends know that, and so it made me a little nervous to go, hey, I think I'm going to try this, and so but yeah.
That's awesome. So talk to us a little bit about the process of finding treasures for the Blue Petal. I loved hearing when we were chatting earlier, you talked about how you and Stephen go around to thrift stores and whatnot.
That's been really it's kind of like, you have to have a hobby, right? It's always been a little bit of a hobby. I grew up with that being a bit of a hobby, and going with my mom and my dad, and then again, like I said, the early days of sitting with my grandmother and seeing some of the treasures that she had, and just being really intrigued. And I love quality as well, right? And so you hear, I sound like an old lady saying this, but it's like, they don't make it like they used to, but
they don't.
It's true. They don't. Certain things, it's just like, how could someone, give this away, or how did this end up in a giveaway box? And again, that sense of nostalgia with me runs super deep. It's that way. I'm that way with memories, with pictures, I almost can be paralyzed on, do I need to give this away? Am I going to need this as a memory? And so, Stephen and I, if we'll go down to Alabama to see our daughter, he's great. He's like my biggest fan, so he's so sweet. But it's not beyond him to already print off here's some yard sales, here's some thrift stores. It's just we've always kind of done that anyways, because it's just we have fun doing it, and so we just have kind of that's what the process is, just anywhere and everywhere, and
So you bring these treasures home, and then you decide, I'm going to put some succulents in them, and then
we started Blue Petal. It's kind of crazy, right?
Oh, I just love that. I love that. And I was asking you earlier, how much of the items do you keep for yourself?
Well, that's a problem. But I also am, like you said, we're empty nesting this August. Our youngest is going to be going to college, and this is our 30th year at the same school. So we are when we stepped into the world of adoption, we delayed the raising of our children by quite a bit. Will Franklin, our youngest biological child, was 9 when we adopted Shoei, and so he's 30, and so I would have been done a long time ago. Right. But oh gosh, what I would have missed, just the amazing opportunity to be in the mother to Shoei and Stevie and Maria has been just, something that I could have never planned or dreamed for. And God just, I feel like selected me, and I just am so blessed to have been their mom. But we are empty nesting this August, and so I can't, I'm like, let it go. This will be a good lesson, and you can downsize, you can let things go. But I do keep, there's a few that I will keep, because my favorite color is green. Here, this one might not find its way off the shelf, but So I keep a few things here or there. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And you talk a lot about Maria, and we know that you went through a parent's worst nightmare and losing her years ago. So talk to me a little bit about the inspiration and how you've weaved her into this whole business idea.
Yeah, because that's tricky, right?
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to ever think that you would be benefiting from such grave loss. But how do we remember stories? How do we remember super hard things? How do we embrace the story that you never wanted to have written? I was just talking to somebody about that this morning. It's I was showing somebody a painting that somebody had done for us. Maria used to wear her hair up in a sloppy ponytail, her favorite, just put it up, but she always wanted a red ponytail holder. And somebody had when we lost Maria in the accident, a painter who at the time wasn't really that popular, but now she's very popular, but she just prayed for us and painted to Stephen's music, and through mutual relationships sent us this painting. I pull it out, and it's the back of an angel, little black hair with a red ponytail holder in. And so a couple years later, I was able to meet this person, and just those kind of God stories, if we don't take, I think we have a responsibility to go, I did not want the story of Maria written in my life, right? I would give anything for that to not be the case. Right. But if we don't acknowledge where the goodness of the Lord shows up in the land of the living, and how healing does come from loss, and that doesn't mitigate the loss at all, I would take that back in a heartbeat, but how we see the beauty from the ashes. And this is just a little bit of a reflection of that, and I can keep a bit of her memory with me, and the encouragement and the emails that I have received, you know, I think people are really resonating with that because we all have hard stories. I don't hold the market on hard stories, and so many of us are carrying things that maybe they can express, or I can help, you know, be an example to help people express their hard.
You came up with this beautiful candle that I saw, and I was telling you earlier, I love your candles because they have such interesting names. It's not like lavender vanilla or beach, you know?
Yeah.
So talk to us about the candle you came up with for the holidays, the name, and kind of where it came from.
Yeah, so our winter candle is called I Love It When My Whole Family Is Together. And that is something that Maria used to say all the time. When we were all together, she would scream, I love it when my whole family's together. We have a big family, and so she would say that a lot. And so when we were talking about a holiday candle, we were like, what if we made it a winter candle where people could just have this scent in their home and remind us that it is a time, winter is a time when families are together a lot. Especially this past year, people are like, don't buy that candle. It's when we don't want to be all together. No, but it resonated with people, and we actually, I was telling you earlier, we put a little mistletoe in it, and that was off of our land, our property, and so just kind of put a piece of the Chapman home in with those a little bit, and so yeah, that's where that came from, and just kind of a nod to her to remind us that it is really a blessing when we all get to be together.
And talk to us about your spring candle. I'm so excited about that, and the name behind it. Where did that come from?
So again, spring is coming. Stephen wrote a whole entire album after Maria passed, called Beauty Will Rise, and basically it is his lament, his story of grief and rising from a story of death into new life. And one of the songs on that record is Spring is Coming. And so how appropriate for a spring candle to be called Spring is Coming, and give again a nod to God himself, the creator of all things, gives us seasons, right? And so from winter, from death, new life grows, and the green in the grass, and the spring, and I love springtime, when you see the new life. And so that spring is coming. I don't know. Should I tell you what summer's going to be called?
I know.
It's
we get the
exciting.
scoop.
It's really simple. It's one word, and you'll get it when I tell you. But it's going to be called Dive, and that's again a nod to a fun song of Stephen's, and we'll kind of see what the scent is. I have an idea, so we'll be creating that in the months to come, and then there'll be a fall candle that I'm still toying with that a little bit, but. Yeah.
Oh,
so it's
I
a lot of
that.
fun. Yeah.
And what I think is so cool about your story is that your husband has his passions, you have this, and they're somehow weaving their way together. So talk to us a little bit how he's been your cheerleader in all this. He
has been. He's a big cheerleader. I think, doing what he's done all these years, and me being his cheerleader, which there is no bigger cheerleader. I'm so proud of him, and staying true to his ministry and commitment to his family. We've done it together, right? I don't sing personally, but cheered him on, and then we stepped into Show Hope together, and now I think he is just doing his best to fan the flame with me. And again, we are empty nesting this fall. We're hoping to do a lot more together, as far as me traveling with him some, and maybe doing some marriage things. We can certainly write the book on what not to do and give the conference on, okay, here we can tell you what not to do. But hopefully we can do some writing together in the future and things like that. Like, we are hoping to stick with each other and spend probably more time. This has probably been a good run, having the COVID thing, saying, can we actually do this stuff? Yeah. I love being with him. He's my best friend, so.
Oh, Mary Beth, you are truly one of my favorite women to speak with. So I mean that, truly. So thank you so much for your time today, again, for inspiring us with your story.
Well, thank you. I really, really appreciate being with you. You're awesome at what you do, by the way. It's just great. It's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Next up, we're going to go to Jordan Lee Dooley, best-selling author, speaker, and podcast host. She has some really practical tips for how you can take your next step.
Hey there, I'm Jordan Lee Dooley, and I want to tell you a little story about how I got started when it comes to small business. I was in a position probably a lot like you are now, maybe not the same season of life, maybe not in the exact same setting, but I began to feel like the trajectory for where I was going with my career wasn't quite aligned with what I felt in my heart was what I was supposed to do. I looked ahead and I felt like, I don't think that's what I want to do with my life. And so I remember I had a conversation with my mom, and I told her, I said, Mom, I don't think I'm really excited about this career path that I thought I was going to go down. And she said to me, she said, okay, so don't do it. And I thought, what? Like, are you allowed to say that as a mom? Like, is that even advice that's allowed? And she encouraged me. She said, right now you have worked so hard working toward this career path. And if it's not exciting you, just try some stuff. Give yourself the freedom to explore and experiment, even if you don't have the perfect plan. And that was something my perfectionist heart really needed to hear, because I don't give myself that permission very often. At least at that time, I didn't. So I said, okay, that's really good advice. So I decided to try some things, the very first of which was modeling. It didn't go very well. I was rejected in my very first try, so didn't go on with that. And then I thought, well, maybe I could do scrapbooking. I just started thinking through all these different creative endeavors I could pursue. Well, one day, my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, he pointed out that I had been doing some doodling and hand lettering in a journal that I had that I would take with me to class, or even in my planner. And it was just something that I enjoyed doing to remember Bible verses or quotes that I heard, or even notes that my professor would say that I needed to remember. If I took the time to write them down intentionally and slowly, I tended to remember them more. And so he pointed out, he said, hey, you're pretty good at that. You should start an Etsy store. And I remember thinking, wow, for a football player, you're pretty artsy. I'm like, I didn't even know what Etsy was at the time. And so I said, well, I'll check it out. So at the time, before I even started on Etsy, I started selling hand-lettered canvases and signs and even like invitations for weddings, just different pieces of art that people could use at their weddings or in their homes. And so I then eventually decided to take his advice and put it on Etsy, and I made my first sale. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, a stranger wants to buy something from me. This is so cool. And so I had that moment that just lit me up and just showed me I want to keep doing this. And so I continued to build this little Etsy store. And I think a big part of the reason, as I reflected back on it years later, as I reflected back on my beginning and why I started, because that Etsy store very quickly evolved into so many more things. It evolved into a speaking career and a publishing career and having a bigger shop that grew beyond Etsy. And so as I got busy, I remember looking back of, why did I really want to start that? Why did the career path that I was going to pursue, why didn't that light me up? Why didn't that excite me? And I think it ultimately came down to family. I think it ultimately came down to looking ahead in my life and realizing I want to be able to have the availability and the flexibility when I have a family. I knew that I was very serious with my boyfriend, now husband, and that we wanted to have a family one day. And I wanted to set myself up with a career or with an opportunity to work out of my home when I needed to, when I could, so that I could have the options and the flexibility for a future family. And I think this was really inspired by Proverbs 31. At the same time that I was hand lettering and doodling all the Bible verses and all the things, I was studying that passage. And I remember thinking, this is such a good example of a woman who works hard, of a woman who builds wealth, of a woman who honors her family into the marketplace. And so I think that was really the foundation of what pushed me to say, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to try it. So I want you to know a few things about the Proverbs 31 woman, because I think this is a really solid foundation when it comes to establishing a clear why and an inspiration behind what we're doing, so that it isn't just, to make a bunch of money or to have, something we love, which are great things. And I think those are important, but let's make sure they're rooted in something deeper and bigger than just temporal and really, quick and easy things. And so when it comes to the Proverbs 31 woman, things that I love about her is that she was resourceful, she was financially savvy, and she built wealth. This isn't something that we talk about a lot. We often talk about her character and her sacrifice and those types of things, which are all great. But she also built wealth. She sold her merchandise in the marketplace for a profit, and she was generous. And a lot of times we focus on her generosity as if she gave her work away for free, but she actually made money from her work. She made good money from her work. She provided for her household while also prioritizing her household. And I think that's the distinguishing feature about her, is that she prioritized her household, but she also provided for it. A lot of times we get fixated on one or the other and get stuck in the extremes of, if I prioritize my household, I can't be going and building wealth for my household. Or on the flip side, we focus a lot on the building wealth and the providing for the household, and we forget to prioritize the everyday things that maybe aren't generating wealth, but are building leaders in our household or are building a marriage and things like that. So looking at both sides of the coin here, and really looking at her as an example of someone who first prioritized the needs of her household and then went out and built wealth to provide for her household, really gives us a solid foundation when it comes to building a business that can do the same. Chances are you may have a dream in your heart or an idea that you want to pursue when it comes to starting your own small business to do something similar. And I want to give you a little piece of advice because I think a lot of times when it comes to starting a small business, we focus a lot on our passions. We're often told, do what you're passionate about, follow your passions, which I think is mediocre advice. And the reason I think that's mediocre advice is because if you're anything like me, you probably have 100 million passions and you want to do all the things. And that can very quickly lead to burnout, that can lead to exhaustion, and that can lead to a lot of confusion. And confusion can cost you because if you're not clear in what you're doing, guess what? You're going to have a hard time being clear to your customers about the value you can offer them. And so I actually really recommend starting with your skills. Really focus on, even if it seems like it's not a super monetizable skill. Hand lettering, I didn't think was something I could monetize, and I ended up building a pretty successful shop off of it and starting a brand that I was able to evolve and grow and continue building. And so when it comes to your life, when it comes to what you want to start with your skills. So start with a skill that you have. Ask yourself, what experience do I have? What expertise do I have? What knowledge do I have? Or even what hard skill or physical skill of a craft could I draw from? And then start asking yourself, now who am I passionate about serving? What problem am I excited about helping with? What challenges have I experienced in my life? Maybe if you are really passionate about helping moms and you have an experience or a degree in nutrition, maybe pair those things together and help young moms when it comes to cooking healthy meals for their household. There are multiple ways you could do this, but start with your skills and then pair it with a passion in your heart so that you can stay in a lane that's focused, is clear and easy to communicate, and is monetizable and surely something that you can charge for. And my last piece of advice to you when it comes to starting a small business of your own is to really take incremental, which means small, implementable, which means something you can implement right now with the resources available to you, imperfect, which obviously means what it is, imperfect action. So incremental, implementable, imperfect action. I want you to write that down. I want you to put that next to your laptop or on your mirror or somewhere that you'll see it daily as you begin to build your small business, because I think a lot of time there's this pressure to take massive action. And very quickly we can burn out from that because no one can climb a mountain in a day. So if you can start where you are with what you have, with taking small steps, just getting 1% closer to where you want to go each day, and take implementable steps, meaning the current resources you have, the time you can devote to it, really something that's implementable to you right now with your current schedule, with your current resources, all of those pieces. When I first started my Etsy store, I had $50 in my pocket and I went to Hobby Lobby. That was all I really had available to me at the time, but I was able to take a very small start and put it into something and reinvest and slowly have this snowball effect. You don't have to build the snowball in one breath, okay? So incremental, implementable, imperfect action, keep that in the back of your mind as you get started. Lastly, I created the Own It Academy, which is an online business school to help women like you, multi-passionate women, start and build a business that they can work from home. If that's something that you're interested in doing and you find yourself trying to figure out where to start, I highly recommend starting with our starter program. This is a step-by-step roadmap to set up a business from start to finish, to set up a business for success from start to finish. So if you're interested in getting started and need a little handholding, would love some guidance on what to do first, second, and third, you can check it out at the ownitacademy.com.
Hi, I'm Nicola Denikin, owner and founder of Something Somehow Pretty Amazing, an Indianapolis micro cut flower farm. I absolutely love what I do because I truly believe that something somehow pretty amazing is happening all around us. You just have to take an opportunity to see it. I believe that flowers give us that opportunity. We grow our blooms fresh and they're seasonal, so there's always a good variety so that you can have field to vase anytime. I love being an entrepreneur because I'm able to set the pace of my business. I'm able to set the direction in which we'll go and how we'll grow. I would love for you to follow us on our Instagram at Something Somehow Pretty Amazing and our website at www.somethingsomehowprettyamazing.org, where we truly believe that something somehow pretty amazing is happening all the time.
Hi guys, I'm Brooke Wajinski. I am the owner of Dottie Couture. We have been in business a little over 12 years and have 2 storefront boutiques in Indiana and an online site that ships all over the world. And that is just crazy to me. It's one of my favorite things about being an entrepreneur is just that truly the sky is the limit. I work alongside over 50 plus women, and I just truly love creating boutique spaces that become people's happy place. and buying clothing that makes people feel beautiful. For those of you who are new to Dottie, we specialize in the look for less. So we carry accessories, shoes, handbags, and none of them will break the bank. So you can stop in our Indy locations or you can shop online with us at dottiecouture.com.
Hey friends, my name is Tanorria Askew and I'm the owner of Tanorria's Table, a personal chef company in Indianapolis. I kind of do several different things. I am the owner of Tanorria's Table as well as Tanorria's Table Consulting, which is kind of new for me. But I am a personal chef and food entrepreneur. I'm a creative entrepreneur, and I'm also a social justice activist. So basically, I say that I will nourish your body with food, but I will nourish your soul with justice. I have had the pleasure of learning a lot of things in my corporate career as it relates to human relations, diversity and inclusion, social justice, community building, and all that jazz. I worked 15 years at Teachers Credit Union in Indianapolis and did a lot of different things, but there just came a time where I knew that I didn't want to retire being a corporate trainer and working in banking. And I got this nudge to just start cooking more and telling people about it. And my friends really pushed me and said, girl, you need to do something with this. And I thought, chef's not a real job. I don't want to do that. But I continued to cook, and really it was my way of getting my friends to come to my house. I would say, hey, I'm cooking, and they would come over. And finally, I realized that this is something that I'm really good at, and I'm always like in the zone when I'm doing it. Fast forward to about 5 years later, I was still working at Teachers Credit Union, and my friends were watching the show MasterChef, and it's just weird that a few of them were watching it at the same time and I was not. But one of them chimed in on social media and said, Tanorria should audition for MasterChef. They're making meatloaf, and we know her meatloaf is delicious. And I was like, I don't want Gordon Ramsay to yell at me. But I studied MasterChef after that. That was season 5, and I watched season 6 like nobody's business. Finally, when auditions came up, I went to Chicago with a couple girlfriends in 5-inch stilettos carrying a big old cooler and made my way down Michigan Avenue to audition for MasterChef. And the journey was absolutely insane from that point all the way up until now, honestly. And I finally made it to California. I was there for 2.5 months and I was crowned 4th best cook in America. I got 3 hugs from Gordon Ramsay. He smells amazing, by the way. After MasterChef, I came back and realized it's time. I just knew that it was time to leave my corporate career. So 2 months after being home, I quit my job and I pursued Tanorria's Table full time. Since that time, I have been on this crazy roller coaster of having no idea what I'm doing every single day and loving every minute of it. Trust me, I think about getting a big girl job all the time, but every time I think about it, I get this almost physical reaction that it is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And so, while doing Tanorria's Table and really kind of riding those MasterChef waves, I have had the honor of cooking for people locally here, like Colts players and radio hosts. I've had the pleasure of being on the news every other week with WTHR, cooking and really getting to know people who have watched me on TV or social media. And I've just like developed this fan base of people who really appreciate what I do, and that's a big deal. I would say that if there's someone out there looking to be an entrepreneur and they're not quite sure, go with your intuition. My intuition has honestly charted my course, and it wasn't until recently that I started working with a business coach that I really recognized that. She was like, Tanorria, a lot of your big decisions, you think them through and you go with your gut and you land on the right side of things. And I was like, oh. I think that probably imposter syndrome and comparison kind of trickled in with me really leaning into my intuition until someone helped me realize, girl, that's like your jam. Intuition is your lane. Stay in it. And so go with your intuition. You will know when the time is right. Some of the basic things that I did just to hold myself accountable early on in business was I just wrote it down. Writing it down was validating for me. It made sense to me. It kind of put the dots together. My mentor at the time said, write a business plan, even if it's a one-page document. And now when I go back and look at my cute little one-page Word document, y'all, it has nothing to do with what I'm doing now. It's like completely different. But I love being able to go back and look at that and see, look where you are now. You get to cook in front of audiences. You get to connect with people virtually. You get to fight for social justice and have a platform in that area. And you get to really, truly live out your dreams. And most importantly, you get to promote really good butter because good butter is self-care.
Hi, I'm Mandy Selke, and I'm Carly Swift, and we are the co-founders of Just Hop In. Carly, why don't you share with us a little bit about how we started Just Hop In? We started Just Hop In off the love of our grandfather and popping popcorn on the stove with him as kids, and we really felt like we could create a business based upon family, community, togetherness. Working with our business for HIV/AIDS was something that was super, super important to us. Mandy, though, tell us why entrepreneurship, why we're so passionate about it. Well, we get to express our creativity, we get to co-create with our staff, and we get to create this entire experience that continues and evolves. And we love to do it right here at Just Hop In at 6406 Cornell Avenue, smack in the heart of Broad Ripple Village. So why don't you just take a little tour?
Hi everyone, my name is Juanita Molano Parma and I am a life and leadership coach. This is my office where I spend most of my coaching days. Before I had my own business, I worked in corporate finance. That's what I did for the first decade of my career, first in Colombia where I'm from and then here in the US. And honestly, it's what I thought I would do for the rest of my life. Never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I thought that it was only people that created big unicorns and looked a certain way and did certain things. And didn't really start thinking about this until I started stepping into the world of leadership and coaching. I started getting coached, getting training, I started coaching leaders and realized it was more fun and impactful than any spreadsheet I ever worked on. At that point, I slowly transitioned and for the last 3 years, I've been building my own coaching business. You can find me at www.jumpcoaching.co.
Up next, we're headed to Ramsey Studios, where we had the incredible opportunity to sit down with Christy Wright, best-selling author, speaker, and host of The Christy Wright Show. However, you might know Christy as being the founder of Business Boutique, an inspiring program that has helped women around the world launch into the business of their dreams. Here we go. Christy, it's so great to be with you today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for coming. This is so fun.
Yes, no, you are a big name among edge women, and around the country, but we are just delighted to hear from you today. Thanks. What I'm fascinated and want to hear most about your story is you are a #1 best-selling author, you're a speaker, you do so many things, you inspire women everywhere, but we want to hear what inspired you to do what you do today.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think a lot of people watching or listening right now, they might be at a crossroads or feel like, am I doing the right thing with my life? And some people think with Business Boutique, I help them find their calling. I'm like, even the idea of the word of calling feels overwhelming. Like, there's one thing we're put on this earth to do. What if I miss it? And I'm like, I don't know about that. I think that there are a lot of things that I enjoy, a lot of things that I am gifted to do. And if this doesn't work out, I'll do something else. So every stage of my journey, I kind of hold it with open hands. But it's interesting because you really see, and I'm a believer, but I see God's hand in so many different stages of my story that even at the time maybe didn't feel like they had purpose. And before I was working for Ramsey Solutions, this was 12 years ago, I guess, I remember I had this distinct moment where I was super burnout at my job. I was working 80 hours a week in a nonprofit, and I love nonprofit, I love their work, but they can burn you out at entry-level salaries pretty quickly. And so after 3 years of this, of working nonstop, I didn't have a life. I remember standing on my deck one day and I prayed, sort of thought. I was just like thought in my head, God, I don't think I'm ever going to find a company I believe in as much as the YMCA. I worked for the YMCA. I still to this day love the YMCA. But I was burnt out. And I was like, I want to work for a company that does work that matters. And I just don't think I'm ever going to find another company that does work that matters. I love that we change lives. And as crazy as this sounds, and I may lose some of you now, but I felt the sentence enter my mind, you're going to work for Dave Ramsey. And I was like, great. Who is Dave Ramsey? Had no idea who it was, Liz. I could not make this up. My laptop was open on my table on my deck, and I walked over and I Googled Dave Ramsey, and it said based in Nashville, Tennessee. I was like, that's fantastic. I don't even have to move. And I went to the website, found a position in event coordinator, applied for it. That was already filled. It was like, but then there was something else in the publishing department. One thing after another, I get hired as a project manager. But what was so crazy about the story is, and I wouldn't say that happens all the time in my life, but I so clearly heard from God what I was supposed to do. And so it's just amazing how God opened a door I never saw coming. So many pieces of my story are like that, where people are like, oh, is this a dream fulfilled? I'm like, oh, this is so much better than my dreams. I could have never made this up. This was God's idea. And so I look back, and when people say they feel called, I literally felt called here, that I was going to work here, so much so that I didn't know the guy's name.
Wow. Okay, that is fascinating. We have
crazy.
so much to unpack with that. But we have so many women today who are watching who are looking at your story and saying, this is so inspiring. I have a dream in my heart. What can I do? You know, what is the next thing I can do? And so we want to hear kind of more of your story about this. How did you unpack this? You felt like God called you to do it. So what did you do next?
Yeah, so, and it's not always like that. Like for some people, it might be like an urge or someone, you know, a sign from someone else or affirmation. Like how God speaks and leads varies for everybody. But I will say that kind of my philosophy with my faith and even helping people through my show, through the Christy Wright Show, or anything that I'm doing is, as it's summarized by, we need to work like it all, pray like it all depends on God, and work like it all depends on us. And we're going to need both. So when I felt God call me that day and say, you're going to work for Dave Ramsey, I'd just sit around and go, great, let me know when Dave's going to call. Like, he's just like, I started taking action. I went to the website. I researched open positions. I applied for a position. I didn't get that position. Then I found out through Young Life, someone I knew also worked here, reached out to him, said, hey, can I take you to coffee and learn about the company? And he introduced me to the HR director. And then he sent me an internal posting that I never would have received. It was only posted internally for a youth project director, youth project coordinator. I applied for that. No one knew how I got into this because I didn't work. I wasn't an internal candidate. Interviewed, got the job. So there were so many steps in that journey that happened because I was obedient to the call. I didn't sit on my hands. And so I would say that God can give you a dream in your heart. God can call you with words in your mind, like I felt that day. God can give you an affirmation. You can just feel a stirring in your spirit, like I can't really explain it, but I feel like I'm supposed to do this. But if you don't do this, it's not going to happen. And so it's up to us to take action. And even if we want to, you know, get all Bible teacher on you here, like even in scripture, when you see Jesus healing people, he had instructions for them. They had a responsibility in the matter. So for the man that had been laying by the pool and could not walk for decades, when Jesus healed him, he said, get up, take your mat and walk. Jesus can heal you, but it's up to you to take your mat and walk. So I would say that the takeaway lesson is, whatever stirring you feel in your spirit, whatever promptings you feel or call you feel, or gosh, this makes me light up, or I feel like there's something there, or when I did that thing, like I came alive, you need to lean into that. You need to take action steps in that direction. They can be small, imperfect. It can start as a Google search, who is Dave Ramsey? Yeah. But it's up to you to take action and obedience for what God is asking you to do or what you feel stirring in your spirit.
Wow. Incredible. Okay, so you started out here as a project coordinator, and then where did your dream kind of go from there?
Well, again, I did not see coming what came down the path for me. So in fall of 2009 is when I was hired. In spring of 2010, because I was over the youth products, so piggy banks and Bible studies and books and that kind of thing, because I was over this department, there was this relationship that was set up between our company in a conference called the Move Conference, put on by Christ in Youth. And they were going to hire Dave Ramsey's daughter to come speak at their conference that summer, so summer of 2010. Well, Dave Ramsey's daughter, Rachel Cruz, who many people know, was a college student at the time at the University of Tennessee. And so they worked out this arrangement. She's going to go on the road. She's going to travel to 20 different cities and speak, do an hour keynote presentation to 1,000 students at a time. So it was going to be a great experience for Rachel because she could get all this practice as a speaker because we knew she was going to do something with youth at our company. But it was also great for them because they got a speaker and it was this great arrangement. I didn't set it up, but I inherited it. So about 2 weeks before Rachel's supposed to go on the road, she's literally graduating college. She's still at UT. about 2 weeks before she's going to go on the road here in Nashville, we get the travel schedule from the conference. And I'm the one that received it because I have become the kind of owner of this project. Well, it was the worst travel schedule you can imagine. They booked the cheapest flights possible. You had 2 and 3 connections. You're going to New York to California to Texas to get to Tennessee. I mean, it's crazy. And so I look at this and I'm like, I've got to take this to Dave Ramsey, her dad, and our CEO, and get it approved. So I take it to Dave. He's like, no, this is more than we agreed to. No one should do this schedule. She can do 10 of these dates. They can pick which 10, but she's not doing these 20 dates. So I had to go back to the conference director, be the bearer of bad news, and tell him I'm so sorry. She's not going to be able to go on the road, even though it starts in 2 weeks. She can do 10 of these dates, and you can pick which 10. You're welcome. But she can't do 20. Well, I'll never forget what the man said to me. And keep in mind, I just want to take you back. I am 26 years old. I'm a youth project manager, and I've been here 6 months. I don't know what I'm doing. Right? Like, I'm just like flying by the seat of my pants. So I get on the phone with this guy, and I said, I'm so sorry, she can't do this. You can pick the 10. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, Christy, he said, I didn't book her for 10. I booked her for 20 keynote presentations this summer. What am I going to do? What am I going to do with the other 10? And without thinking, I said, I'll do them. And he said, can you speak? I said, I think so. I've never spoken in my life, Liz. Never spoken in my life. I don't even know what I was doing. And in that moment, I wasn't thinking about, I didn't get approvals. I didn't ask permission. I didn't audition. I was just like, here's a problem. I think I can solve it. And I went on the road that summer, and I went to every single event that Rachel was at, and I ran her AV, so props and AV stuff from the back. And then I would go to the next city and do the talk. And then I would meet her in the next city and run AV and go to I went to all 20 dates. Well, that fall, our company identified a need for more speakers. Dave was turning down 3,000 requests a year for him. So we're like, we need more speakers, more message bearers to spread the money message. And they created something called, at that time, the Speakers Group, the Dave Ramsey Speakers Group. And it included 5 men and 2 women, Rachel Cruz and myself. They just slid me in, no audition, no interview, no application. I did a good job then, and they knew I could do a good job again. And that has now, of course, evolved into the Ramsey personalities and what it is today. But when I look back at that, there's such an important life principle there, business principle, leadership principle, and that is this. I didn't wait for someone to offer something to me. I didn't wait for to have the proof, to have the experience, to say, here's what I know I can do. I just saw a problem and I solved it. I said yes to the opportunity before I knew how. And I would say a lot of women wait until they have proof, permission, do they have a perfect plan to prove that they can do it. They wait till they know how they're going to execute before they say yes. And if you do that, you will miss out. Say yes before you know how. It's in doing the thing that you learn how to do the thing. How did I learn how to become a speaker? By speaking on stages and figuring out how I go, how as I went. And so I love the quote in Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, where she said, some of the most amazing career opportunities are not positions that are posted, but problems that you solve, and that thing becomes your job. And that has been my story. I solved a problem, and that is now my full-time job. That didn't exist at the time. And so I just think that's such a great takeaway, especially for women. Say yes before you know how, and watch how you will learn what you can do by actually doing the thing.
That is so inspiring. And I know, Christy, you are a mom too, and a lot of our audience is moms right now. Yeah. And they're probably thinking, I have this great idea, but I feel like I'm stuck at home right now. What is your advice to them? Moms who have a dream for their future, but are busy raising little kids.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been on this kick about lately, Liz, I've been on a major kick about it. I don't think we talk about it enough, and I would say this is what's key to the answer to your question. There is such a significance in seasons. And I don't think we talk about seasons enough. But your season of life, your season of family, your season of work, your season of goals, your season of health, your seasons of what's a priority for you affects everything. And so what matters to you will be dictated by your season. What mattered to me when I was a high school student was who I was going to ride to the football game with on Friday night. What mattered to me when I was 23 was building my career at this nonprofit. What mattered to me when I had Carter in those newborn days was figuring out how to be a mom. What mattered to me in spring of 17 was launching my book. It doesn't mean that you don't care about other things, and this is not to say they're going to compete with your life fixed priorities of like God, other, self. I'm talking about practical priorities for real life time management. And that will change based on the season you're in. So the best advice I could give to someone, and I'm in the thick of this because I have just finished up my manuscript for my book that comes out in September on life balance. But I think that when you look at the season you're in and then give yourself permission to decide what is most important right now, then you realize you don't have to feel guilty for not saying yes to everything all the time. It doesn't mean never, it just means not right now. There's all kinds of things I'd love to do, Liz. I would love to buy a pontoon boat. I'd love to go to Europe. I would love to play on an adult soccer league again sometime. I would love to get a dog. Not right now. That doesn't mean never. You're never going to go to Europe. You're never going to have a dog, whatever. It just means, what is priority right now? Okay, right now, I've got 3 kids under age 6. I'm hanging on for dear life. Right now, I'm in a season of little kids. That means I don't see my friends as often as I want to. That means my house is not as clean as I want it to be. That means I have grace for the season that I'm in. And I think one of the dangers that I've experienced in my own life, and I've seen a lot of women do, is we look around us at our season and we draw conclusions about ourselves based on the season we're in. So I look at my house and it's a mess. No matter how much I clean, it's still a mess. And I think I'm a mess. And that's not true. I'm in a season of little kids who make a mess. I am not a mess. And so what I want to encourage these moms is you are not the season you're in. Your season is where you are. It is not who you are. So identify the season you're in. Decide what is most important to you right now and give yourself permission to let everything else go. And this can be very practical. So for example, you have a dream to start a business and you are stretched thin and you literally, that is not the top priority. You want to do it, but it's not the top priority right now. Say to yourself, okay, when my youngest is in preschool, that's when I'm going to start that business. And so it gives you permission to be present with these babies, because it doesn't mean you're never going to start a business. It means not right now. Or maybe the opposite is true. Your kids have just gone to school and you're like, I'm feeling kind of restless. I want to do something. Okay, what's important right now with this new gift of time with your kids in school? It can even be super specific. Let me give you a super specific example of mine right now. Yeah. My top priority, one of my top priorities in this season of spring of this year is getting my boys to swim. It's a major priority. They're not going to learn how to swim on their own. It's going to take time, intentionality, swim lessons, repetition, being at the pool. So every Friday afternoon for the last 3 months, I have been taking my boys to the pool to swim, to practice putting their face under, to practice getting comfortable in the water. Now, would I rather go to a happy hour on Friday afternoon? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. I would rather go to a happy hour on Friday afternoon. But if I don't decide what matters to me right now and then actually spend time on it, it's never going to happen. And I'm going to look up and I'm going to have 15-year-olds that can't swim, and I had some fun happy hours, but my kids never learned to swim. So what's more important, happy hour or my kids learning to swim? My kids learning to swim. And so when you decide for yourself, in this season, I want to focus on my aging parent. In this season, I want to focus on launching this product line. In this season, I want to focus on helping my kindergartner that's struggling in his math class. Decide what's important, and it gives you permission to focus on those things, make them actually happen, and then shake the guilt for all the things you're not doing because you realize it's not the season for that. And I would summarize that with what I tell people all the time, life balance is not doing everything for an equal amount of time. It's about doing the right things at the right time. When you do what's right for you right now and give yourself permission to change that based on your season or week, then you shake the guilt and you spend your life on what's most important to you.
Wow. I know you've hit home with so many women watching tonight, including me. That is so good. My other question for you is, as women, we think about the need for support and for friends. So tell me, in your own life, who are the type of people that you surround yourself with?
So I have several different types of friend groups. And it's funny because Rachel Cruz and I have talked about this. I think different friend groups and different friendships, they serve different purposes in your life. So I have my college girlfriends that we have memories from way back in the day that are ridiculous, and when we get together we laugh and we know each other in and out. You cannot talk for 6 months and you pick up and didn't miss a beat. Those friendships are so life-giving and you feel so seen and known, because I can be on stage in front of 10,000 people and they're like, oh please, because it's just me, it's just Christy, you know. And so there's something so awesome about having old friends, if you have those, if you still have people you keep in touch with, where you just get to be yourself, laugh, dance, be silly, be young again, reclaim that innocence that you had before life got so busy and you just paid your bills and kept up with laundry.
Yeah, right.
But then I think there is something really important about having friendships that are either in your season of life or in the type of work that you do or things that are really, really important to you. So I'll give you an example. Matt and I, when we had just gotten married, we joined a Bible study of newlyweds. And it was really fun to be around a lot of other people that were going through that first year of marriage and all the laughter and like, oh yeah, dishes, am I right? Like, you know, cutting up with people that are like right where you are, or they have little kids right where you are. Because, I mean, a lot of my girlfriends from college have kids my kids' age, but if they didn't, I would still need that community of other moms that have little kids, not high schoolers, but like right in the trenches with me where we can lock arms and be like, oh, tantrums and this and bath time and is your child doing this? You just feel such connection to people to get through that hard stuff, and you feel less crazy. But even in your work, so the nature of what I do is really unique. None of my girlfriends understand that. Anytime that I speak, they're like, I mean, what is it like to walk on stage and like all these people, all these eyeballs are on you? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I've just done it so long, you know? But then I can talk to Rachel Cruz or Annie F. Downs or any of the other Ramsey personalities. Be like, y'all, and like talk about an event like that audience was tough, or that audience was awesome, or that joke did not land. Note to self, don't tell that joke again. And they know what it feels like to do what you do. So whether it's work or season of life, I think it's so important to have people around you that get you and are walking in it with you. It just makes it a lot less lonely. You feel more seen, and it gives you great advice and encouragement to get through some of those challenges.
So you mentioned Annie F. Downs, and I know Business Boutique is so well known among women everywhere, and Annie used to go with you, right?
Yeah.
So tell us your whole idea and concept behind Business Boutique and how that got started and who you wanted to really minister to.
Yeah, so let's go back to, I became a speaker in a speakers group, right? So I spoke on the side. It was in our company, but on the side. So I still did my full-time job of being a project manager of like Bible studies and books and that kind of thing. But on the weekends and evenings, I would travel and speak, and I was teaching the baby steps in our money messages. Well, in 2012, a couple years later, our company went through a major reorganization, and the leadership was looking at stability, scalability, and succession. So Dave starts looking at, okay, what is this company going to look like after I die, after I retire, after me? So he starts to put in place a plan for leadership, which consists of our board now, instead of just him. And then also Ramsey personalities. And it was this role we created that was a full-time position that were speakers, authors, media personalities, influencers, thought leaders, that type of thing. And so the speakers group kind of turned into that. It kind of morphed from being part-time on the side, money, to being full-time and not just money. And we want to go into more areas, help more people in areas than just money. And so when I was kind of in this almost like an interview process of going from speakers group only to full-time Ramsey personality, we got in a room, and it was a lot of board members, my husband, Matt, Dave, and we're just spending the entire day unpacking my story. And so you start to look backwards and go, what are the things that make you light up? What are the things that make you come alive? What are the pieces of your story that you've got this conviction in your spirit, you can't not talk about it? What are the things that have shaped you that give you passion for what you want to do? And it wasn't money. Now, I don't dislike money. My story of becoming debt-free is a great story, and I love sharing that. But what was I, passionate about talking about? And so as we dug into my story, you really started seeing a pattern. My mom started a business when I was 6 months old to raise and support me. I grew up in the business. My dad is also an entrepreneur. I have a degree in business. I'm a certified business coach, and I've had multiple side businesses along the way. So I'm like, there's a real pattern here of business. And at the same time, you're seeing this pattern of business in my story and my strengths and education and experience. You also are right at the beginning of this side gig generation, where now people are starting businesses on Facebook and Etsy. They're freelancers, they're mompreneurs, home-based business, independent workers. You're seeing millions and millions of Americans starting this side hustle for a variety of reasons because it's so accessible. But the only problem is you've got millions of people coming to a space that they don't know how to do.
Right.
It's like, oh, he's doing it, I want to do it. You can make some extra cash. I want to do it. And they're like, oh, shoot, it's hard. They get excited at first and they hit a wall of overwhelm and fear gets loud. But what about taxes and trademarks, and do I need a business license, and I don't have a business background, and I don't want to sell, I don't want to feel all slimy, and they start to disqualify themselves. And I'm going, there's an opportunity for me to take my story and skills and intersect the very thing that's going on in the market right now and serve a purpose for our company of going into spaces that we're not in right now. We didn't have anything like it, and help people with what I know how to do, help them do what they want to do, because they just need what anyone needs, which is a little help. So I was like, let me come alongside them, put the cookies on the bottom shelf, show them what they need to do to help them do this side gig or small business thing they want to do. So it really started for me of looking backwards on my story and seeing a pattern. Here's a pattern of something I'm passionate about, something I know how to do, and something that is opportunity that meets a need in the marketplace. Even if that was my story, but it was some super weird thing that wasn't a need in the marketplace, it wouldn't have worked. It was the fact that it was my story, intersected our business's goals, and also what was going on in the market that made that work, I think.
So good. So I know a lot of women are watching today and they're already so inspired by what you're saying, and they're thinking, okay, I have an idea, a dream, my time for that is coming. And I read on your Instagram lately something that really inspired me. You were speaking in a library. And someone asked you, what if someone is already doing the thing I want to do?
Yes.
Will you share your answer to that question?
Yes, it's one of the most common questions I've ever gotten. And I will say I've experienced that fear as well. The backstory to that I didn't share on Instagram that I'll share for you guys is there was this day early on to me moving into the business space. Like, we didn't launch Business Boutique. We hadn't had events, no books, nothing. Okay, so I'm unknown, but I'm a Ramsey personality. What does that even mean? And so I created this download of 25 ways to say no. And I worked on it and I wrote it and we had it designed and we were getting the PDF. It was going to be kind of a lead magnet for my email capture to start to build this email list. And I was so excited about it. And, this was a major pain point I saw for people. They want to say no, but they don't know how. And their time is just taken up by everybody else. And so I was feeling really good. The day before we launched it, the day before we announced it, a very well-known author and speaker that is far, far, far more famous and more successful and more well-known and everything than me now, but even at that time, and she's become a friend, ironically, but she's amazing, launches the exact same thing. It literally was like a download of, here's a list of ways to say no. And I was like, oh, I felt like if I launched it, it would look like I was copying her or, trying to steal something from her. And I was just crushed. I'd worked for months. The team had worked for months on this really cool asset, and I just felt crushed. And it was one of those moments where I felt the Lord speak to me, and I felt God say, "There's room for you too." That's it. Just that one line. There's room for you too. And I've taken that message and I share that with women because I think we need to remember that, especially if you're a believer and you believe this, our God is not a God of scarcity. He's a God of abundance. And there are no limits to what he can do. And there's no limits to how he can use you. And so while you look at the marketplace as, oh, it's too saturated, or oh, it's too much competition, or oh, it's a place of scarcity and limits, when our God gets involved, nothing is limited. And there's room for you. And if he's calling you somewhere, it's because he has a purpose for where he's calling you. And so in the bookstore that day, when I got that question, I was on book tour and I'm doing book signings in bookstores all over America. And I get this question, what do I do if someone's doing the thing I want to do? And I said, look around you. There are hundreds of thousands of books in this bookstore, maybe millions. And yet you're standing here holding mine. Is mine the best book in the world? No. Am I the best business coach in the world? No, that's not humility. That's just a fact. Like I have done a lot, but I'm not by any means the best, most successful, most experienced anything. And yet you're here holding mine. Why is that? I believe that there's a group of people that only I can help in the way that only I can help them. And so don't get distracted by someone else doing something similar to you, because it doesn't take away from what God wants to do through you. No one can do what you can do like you can do it, so go do it. And so I think, we're used to, someone commented on that Instagram post and said, how many places can you get a burger? And I thought, isn't that the truth? And I like them all for different reasons. I like this burger here, and maybe I'm in the mood for this, a little bit more greasier. It's like, there is room for all of us, and there's room for your gifts and your talent, your ideas and your passion, your story. No one else has that combination that you have. And so I would even add, you don't even have to be the best. You don't even have to be the best. But you do need to step into it, because otherwise the world is missing out on what you have to offer, and the world needs what you have to offer. So don't get distracted by someone else doing something similar. It doesn't take away from what God wants to do through you. There is room for you too.
So good, Christy. So you've talked a lot about how faith has played such a big part in who you are and where you are today. And I'm sure we have some women watching who are thinking, okay, I want to hear God's voice in my life. What do I need to do to hear him more?
Okay, the first one is, I laugh because I'm like, God, this is just, it's funny I speak on things that I need help with, okay? So this is not because I'm an expert, it's because I'm the worst at it. The first, are you ready for it? You have to listen. That means silence. And I don't know about you guys watching, but I'm really good at talking to God. I have a lot to say.
Yeah.
My prayer list is long. I'm really uncomfortable with silence. It's hard. It's hard to be quiet. It's hard to be still. No worship music. Not even journaling. Just stillness. To ask God to speak to you and then have the discipline and self-control to stop your mind and stop your mouth and stop your hand and let there be space for him to speak. God does not hardly ever interrupt me. He doesn't barge in. He doesn't bang on the door. It's a still, small whisper that you will only hear in silence, usually. The other thing I would say is someone once gave me the analogy of a radio station. We're tuned in different stations and wondering why we're not hearing God's channel. The more you tune into his channel to look for him, when something amazing happens in your life, to not go, what a coincidence, to go, oh no, that was God. To begin to look for him, you will find him. It says in scripture, when you seek me with all your heart, you will find me. I will be found by you. And he's showing up. And we're going, oh, that was such a coincidence. Weird. Oh my gosh. Crazy, right? And God's going, oh, that's me. That's me. That's me. That's me. The more you look for him, the more you will see him and find him. And then more quickly you begin to be able to identify him again. Let me give you an analogy. I wrote about this in my devotional, Living True, 40 Days to Get Back to You. So I tell this story of my dog, Jackson, and I love stories, obviously. And so Jackson, I had a Bernese Mountain Dog for 11 and a half years. He was just the greatest dog. And I lived on a farm, another story for another day. And I was like, this was one night at the farm, me and my roommate were having a Halloween party, and Jackson was always in the yard. I never let Jackson get into the main pasture with all the animals because he always chased the goats and chased the horse, and he got everybody riled up, and then the goats were fainting goats, so they would just pass out, and then he would sniff their privates. Goats don't appreciate that. Like, it's a whole thing. So I tried to keep him in the yard. Well, at this party, one of the people at the party accidentally let him out, and all pandemonium erupts. He's chasing the goats, the mini donkey, the cats, the horse. It's just chaos. It's complete chaos. Everyone at the party screaming his name. So we're in this huge pasture. Jackson's chasing everybody. All the goats are running. It's in the middle of the night. It's dark. And everyone's screaming his name, Jackson, Jackson, trying to get him back. And in this moment, I'm like, I don't know what to do because I need to get him back, and he's never going to hear me. And I did something that was so counterintuitive. I stood exactly where I was. I didn't chase him. I didn't move. I didn't yell. I just said his name one time in a completely normal tone. I stood there and I said, Jackson. He stopped what he was doing and walked directly towards me.
Wow.
And I thought, when you hear the voice of the one that knows you, you can make it out in a crowd. But how did Jackson know my voice? Because we spent time together. And when you spend time with God, when you begin to look for him, when you begin to tune into his radio station, listen and silence, you begin to more readily recognize his voice even in the crowd, even in the chaos, because you've spent time with him. You know the voice of the one that loves you, and you can hear it despite everything else going on. And so I think just stillness and silence and looking for him, you will find it. Another thing that I would add to that is, regardless of whether you're an optimist or a pessimist or whatever your personality or Enneagram is, in anything in life, you will find what you're looking for. So if you're looking for reasons to be mad, angry, disgruntled, resentful, disappointed, you will find them in any job, in any season, in any relationship, in your marriage, in your kids. Doesn't matter, you'll find them. But if you look for reasons to be happy and hopeful and grateful, if you look for God's protection, his provision, if you look for things to be glad about, if you look for things to be hopeful about, you will find those too. In anything in life, you will find what you're looking for. So if you want to hear from God, start to listen to him and look for him, and you'll find him.
Wow. I know I was like getting emotional as you're saying this because I think it's a reminder that we all need. The world is so loud. We're listening to so many voices, but the right one.
Yeah, yeah.
Christy, next I want to talk to you a little bit about identity.
Yeah.
I think I was so excited to see your devotional and everything and what it's about. So would you share a little bit, as women, we wrestle with, are we moms? Are we employees? Are we wives?
Right.
You know, and
Right.
we tend to put our identity in titles.
Yep. Yep.
So talk to us a little bit about how we kind of fight back against that.
You know what's so interesting is how you described it. I say the exact same thing, but I say it a slightly different way. So it seems like men traditionally see their identity in their work, and it's very title based. It's very title and outcome and results driven. Of like, this is what I do, and this is what I perform, and this is what I bring home and produce. You know, that type of thing. Results. Women, it's more relationships, because all the titles you just listed are relationships. We see ourselves in reflection of others, in reaction to others. And so I think that can be really dangerous, because while those titles are great, those relationships are great, they are blessings, they are wonderful, they certainly are a massive part of who we are. Our children, for example, like, gosh, like, there's nothing more rewarding in the world. But if you put your identity there, if you only see yourself as a mom, as a wife, whatever the thing is, even as a daughter, whatever, you're going to have a fragmented picture, because that's not the full picture of who you are. First of all, in a practical sense, that's too great a burden to put on that person. That's too great a weight to put on their shoulders, that you're my source of my everything. That's dangerous. And then on the other side, we weren't created for that. We're so much more than that. But on the practical side too, if God forbid one of those roles changes, if you get divorced, if you lose a child, lose a parent, you feel like you lose yourself. Because the place that you got your identity has now changed, or is gone. Even in your work. If I find my identity in being a speaker and author, and one day this whole thing is stripped away and I go, who am I outside of this? That's a scary place to be. So the words that I have felt multiple times in my life, and I've heard multiple women say, is, I just want to get back to me. I just feel like I've lost myself. I don't even know who I am anymore. We say it a lot of different ways, but the sentiment is the same, is that we've somehow lost ourselves in our own lives. And I think it's because we are so relational, which is a wonderful quality that we have as women. It comes very natural to us. But it becomes dangerous when we find our identity and significance there. And so for me, it's been seasons of life. I remember, when I worked all the time, I didn't know who I was outside of my work. When in my late 20s, when all my friends were the one thing I wasn't, which was married. I'd been a bridesmaid 497 times, and no, I didn't wear the dress again. I lost myself in singleness. It's like, I'm single. Just stamp that label in my head. I'm single. I'm forgotten. I'm never going to get married, which was something I desired. When I became a mom, man, I'm like, from morning to night, sippy cups and diapers, and oh my gosh, I'm like, that's all I am. Even if I work, I feel like that's all I am. And so regardless of the reason, I think a lot of times we lose ourselves in our own lives. And I think that we are so much more than that. You are more than your roles, more than your responsibilities, more than your titles, more than your relationships, more than your season. And I think it's that more that God invites us to explore and learn about in Him, according to what He says. And so that was really my heart behind my devotional, is to give women a framework to get back to themselves. And so that through this 40 days, we look at who God is, 10 days on that, who you are according to what He says about you, 10 days on that, where you are in your season of life, because that affects everything, and then where you're going and what God says about your future. And those are the 4 things I feel like God gave me when I really prayed about what this devotional should be, because I was on a flight one day. I was pregnant with my 3rd child, and I had gotten approval from our publishing department here to explore this devotional idea. And they said, well, give us an outline. What would you say? And I was like, right. What would I say? Okay, let's think about that. And I was sitting on a plane. I opened up my laptop. I opened up a Microsoft Word document. I've got my big pregnant belly. And I was like, okay, God, I want to help women get back to themselves. How do we do that? And I literally typed out, you need to know who God is, who you are, where you're going. I never edited it, never changed it, rearranged it. Those 4 things came out of me as I sat in silence and asked. And so I feel like those are God's ideas, and then we unpack different attributes through each of the 10 days per section and 40 days total. But I think it allows us to reset and refocus on who we are according to Him, not who we are according to the world around us.
Oh, Christy, you are speaking to my heart, and I know to so many women who are watching tonight. My last question, or one of my last questions for you, is we have women today who say, I am so inspired right now, but I don't know where to begin. Yeah. So after I get to know who God is and who I am, how do I discover how God has wired me and how I can make a difference in the world?
That's really good. I'll give you a couple different places to look. Look at patterns. Patterns, good patterns or bad patterns. If there's a continual problem in your life, sometimes I gotta give you some tough love, sister, like the common denominator is you. So are you doing something Are you inviting something? Are you allowing something? Are you permitting something in your life? Unhealthy people, toxic situations? Are you drawn to drama? Are you drawn to chaos? Do you feel the need to be the hero? Like if there is always chaos in your life, I don't think that that's a coincidence. I think that there's something in us that we can go, okay, we're not gonna always take the blame for everything, but we can't ignore the possibility that we are somehow have a blind spot or contributing to unhealthy patterns in our life. And so the hardest but best thing you can do is go, okay, how am I contributing to this? What am I allowing? What am I missing? What blind spots do I have? And a great thing you can ask yourself are people that you love and trust. Hey, what are some blind spots you see in me? Are there patterns that are bad patterns or good patterns? Good patterns, let's look at that. Like business coach, my mom. What are the good patterns? Oh, every time I do that, I get so excited. Every time I've done that, I feel alive. Man, I am my best when I'm doing this. What is that? So when you look at patterns, that can be a great way to show you this is who you are. These are things that might need to change, habits that are not serving you well. This is God going, please turn the other direction. And then these are good patterns of God's showing, hey, this is who you are. I'll give you a really super vulnerable, that's very real time for me. This is like, I literally was talking about it before I came in here this morning to a woman that's mentored me. God recently for me in the last 5 years has not only continually broken out of the boxes I've put him in, he's broken out of the box. Broken me out of the box I put myself in. And so even at different seasons where I think I've got it figured out, I am put on this earth to help women with businesses. Little at a time, as I'm obedient to where he's placing me and what he's asking of me and what steps he's putting in front of me, he's showing me more and more of who I am. Things I didn't know that were there. Desires I didn't know I had and gifts that I didn't know that I had. So in the fall of 2017, for an example, I had an opportunity to speak all over the country with the Propel Women's Conference with Christine Kame. I am sharing the stage with heroes of the faith. And at the same time, as I'm doing that, God is drawing out this desire in me to teach scripture. Well, then I start leading our company devotional every January. Then I put out a devotional book. All the while, God is showing me who I am. Well, then the last 3 months, I've been a guest on all these Christian podcasts. And as I get to answer questions and not edit, not hold back on my faith, there is something coming alive in me. And I don't know what that is. So TBD, stay tuned. I don't know. I don't know what God's going to do with it. I can't tell you where I'm going to be. But I'm paying attention to what makes me light up and come alive. So I would just encourage people, pay attention to patterns, pay attention to what makes you light up and come alive, and lean into those things. I think that God is not going to show you the whole path, but he'll show you enough to take that next step, and then take that next step, and the next step. The last thing I'll say about this, because I know we've got to wrap up, women, a lot of people can be paralyzed by fear of doing the wrong thing. And if they're so scared to do the wrong thing that they do nothing at all. The thing I would encourage you is if you stay connected to God, I really believe this. If you stay connected to God, if you're seeking him, he will not let you go wrong. If you are not seeking him, he will let you drive your car off a cliff, and we reap what we sow. But if you're connected to him, if you're going, God help me, he's not going to send you off the cliff. He's not going to pull the rug out from under you. He's not a bad God. He's a good God. And so as you seek him, he will direct you. If you start to step in this direction, he'll close that door and be like, no, this way. No, this way. So you don't have to fear doing the wrong thing. Take the next step with the information you have in front of you in the direction of those things that make you light up, and watch how he guides you as you stay connected to him.
Christy, it has been an absolute delight to be with you today. So I know that you have spoken directly to my heart and to the women watching tonight, and hopefully we all leave inspired to chase after God and who it is that he's wired us to be. So thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Hopefully, you have left inspired, informed, and uplifted by the wonderful messages from all of our speakers. If you're interested in hearing more content like this, we would ask that you donate by texting 44321 and entering EDGE 2021 in the message line. We look forward to our next program on mental health in 2 weeks and hope that you join us for that. Thanks again to all of our sponsors for making tonight possible. Have a great evening.